Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you all for joining. So whether you're here with us in person or tuning in from across the globe, welcome. And thank you for being a part of this. WordPress doesn't run on servers. It runs on people who show up, and that's you. This is my first year as serving as the executive director of the WordPress project. And I stood in front of you last year in Tokyo. And since then, I've been listening, working, traveling, and learning from contributors around the world. And what I've seen has only deepened my belief in what this software can do. I've met people using WordPress to unlock new careers. I've met contributors who started a single translation or forum post and ended up or are now leading major pieces of the project. In LATAM, Europe, and the States, I've seen students get access to WordPress tools and start building faster than we could have ever imagined. I've watched communities build in public, resolve disagreements in the open, and collaborate across languages and time zones. And it's not always easy, but it's working. And what we have is more than code. It's momentum, and it's culture. And it's a system that lets people learn by doing and lead by showing up. And today's a big day. It's the first time we'll be releasing a new version of WordPress live at State of the Word. Yeah. So stay tuned for that, and we'll let you know exactly when WordPress 6.9 is officially out. We'll dive a lot more into that later, but I'll say this now. 6.9 is fast, it's polished, and it's built for collaboration. The kind of progress you can feel when you publish, not just read it from a changelog. WordPress is shipping faster, listening better, and building for teams, not just individuals. And speaking of progress, 2025 has been a year AI and WordPress has really started to change what's possible. And so earlier this year, we actually created the first dedicated AI team inside the WordPress project. They've been working hard on tools that support contributors and site builders and not replace them. So some of them are here with us today, and you're going to hear more about their work later in the show. But at its core, WordPress is still about freedom. It's not just software freedom. It's built to freedom to publish, to build, to learn, and to participate. From classrooms to corporation, from Lagos to London, WordPress is powering ideas and unlocking possibilities for millions of people. And it works because it belongs to all of us and those who contribute. And now I'd like to welcome someone who's been contributing for more than 20 years, and as Automatic celebrates its 20th anniversary and WordPress moves into its third decade, I'd like to welcome Matt Mullenweg to the stage.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Well, howdy, everyone. What a special spot to be enjoying. Like after Tokyo, it was like, I don't know if we can top that, but this is not too bad. So thank you all who are here today. Thanks for those, at the warehouse and other places in the watch parties all around the world and everything. So, gosh, it's so good to be back. Like, to think back, this was original screenshot of WordPress. It launched, WordPress started with just a blog post, that I posted that then Mike Little commented on a day later, by the way. It's a belief that publishing should be free, over 2 decades of experimenting, shipping, scaling, and it still feels like we're just getting started. There's so much left to do. Like our mission is still going. I never imagined from that first blog post, those first couple of blogs, that really I had to set up for my friends because no one would download the software. That would be over 40% of the web today. Also Automatic, the for-profit that I was lucky to start with some folks a few years after WordPress, is now 20 years old. And it's very exciting to be able to sort of build a company that tries to show how is a conscious capitalism, like how for-profits and open source can work together in a way that makes both better, in a way that's not sort of trading off open source ideals, but actually embracing the nature of open source as it grows and scales. So let's zoom out a little bit to see what the community's built over the past year. So in the big picture, we're at about 43% of websites and about 60% of the CMS market. That number has held steady. When you think about operating and scale half the web, steady is a massive amount of infrastructure. When you also think of all the billions of dollars. So the number 2 here is Shopify with 6.8. So think of the billions of dollars of advertising, marketing, R&D, engineering that's being spent by all the proprietary companies that are trying to lure people away from open source, essentially. And so with open source, we have the ability to give people freedom, agency, independence. It's it's a creed. It's a way of living that gives people more agency, and it's serving as a counter to what are the more proprietary, taking away your freedom forces in the world, software. Some people ask, is 43% where we're going to hit? I do think that there have been some headwinds, but it's interesting to look in certain markets like Japan, where actually, if you zoom in, we're now actually 58.5% of all websites in Japan, and 83% of the CMS market share, which is, I guess it was good that we were in Tokyo last year. I think that what happens is that, if we do a good job of listening to our users, serving our community, and being responsible to our core values, that open source software earns the right to become sort of a default that people like to use. And instead of building yet another wheel, we can say, okay, let's share these sort of primitives together and then build interesting stuff on top of it. There's been a global shift in the adoption of WordPress, which is interesting. Japanese is now the second most popular language used in WordPress today, the first language other than English, which has also been very fun to see how Japan has really risen up. So it's, as we move this sort of state of the words and WordCamps all around the world, it's fun to sort of activate the different local communities. It's not just about Japan. This is also the first year that we clicked over to where over 56% of WordPress sites are now in non-English. So we have a good market share of the global web, but I think also what's so powerful about the sort of community approach of WordPress is that it can be sort of everywhere, everything all at once. To reference the movie. Where we're breaking some new ground as well and getting some new uptick is actually in the top 1,000 sites. So one of the magical things about WordPress as a democratizing technology is it can be used for a small individual blog with just a few posts, but also powering some of the top websites in the world. And we are now at 49.4% of the top 1,000 websites in the world, which is up 2.3% from last year. So we're trying to democratize the web, take this technology that the biggest sites in the world can use, but also the smallest sites are available for free. Anyone can download it, run it with Playground. You can even boot it up in your browser. And we're trying to change how things are being built as well. So the health of WordPress is really in the ecosystem. And like I said, the core software is cool, but what's really amazing is what's being built on top of it. So we're now at over 60,000 plugins, which is up 68% of approved plugins since 2024, where we saw 3,900. So the rate of approved plugins is going. We're at 2.1 billion downloads of plugins by the end of year. And looking at the theme side of things, there's been over 1,500 themes released this year alone, bringing us to over 14,000 themes total. So you add it all up, there's 74,000 plugins and themes available to make WordPress as individual and unique as every single person in the world and here in this room is. We've seen over 40% adoption in block themes, which we're over 1,000 block themes now. And finally, with contributors, we're looking at where, with our most latest releases, we've reached a peak of now 921 contributors to WordPress 6.8. So that's the pipeline, the future of the project right there. Our first release this year, 6.8 Cecil, racked up 79.5 million downloads since April, which is up 13% from what we saw last year. Every one of those downloads represents someone choosing WordPress, choosing open source, and choosing to build something, which is very exciting. So that brings us to today, the launch of WordPress 6.9. Which is called Gene in honor of Gene Harris, the amazing pianist known for his warm and soulful style. we had over 900 contributors to 6.9. 230 of them were first-time contributors. And that led to 340 enhancements and fixes for a really stable, jam-packed release that we'll dig into a little bit of later. But we have a few of those contributors here today. They've flown in from all over the world. And we're going to do, I've got a little button here. We're going to do something we've never done before, which is actually do the release of WordPress live with all of you today. So let's get everyone up on stage. Come on up. All right, so I think if I press this button, there'll be a little countdown. Let's see. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you all. These are like the hidden heroes of WordPress. Like they don't get on stage as much as I do and things like that. But this is, and you know, this doesn't represent everyone, but it's so exciting to be able to have some of the folks that lead the releases, that do the hidden work of shipping software to 40% of all websites, several times, usually 3 times per year, with you know, auto upgrades going out to millions and millions of sites. We'll maybe check in on the download counter a little bit later to see how it's going. So thank you all. Round of applause for the 6.9 leads. And where did y'all come in from? So we got Florida. Where else? Massachusetts? Spain? Chicago? Canada? Nice. All right. This is what the flywheel of open source contribution looks like. You get contributors, users, creators. You know, we're going from strength to strength. There were 2 billion plugin downloads, countries like Japan with the 80th percentile. Contributors we're imagining what's possible, one line of code at a time. But what happens when you take these sort of like different things that we're all doing, and of course, it couldn't be a presentation 2025 without talking about AI. So in 2022, actually before the release of ChatGPT, I asked the WordPress community to learn AI deeply. And what I didn't know then, what no one realized, which is how crazy the next couple of years would be. We're actually just a couple days away from the anniversary of, I think it was a few days ago, of ChatGPT being launched. It was kind of funny. There's a tweet from Sam Altman saying, hey, we built this little thing, you could chat with it. Check it out. The capabilities of these models is kind of insane. So we've gone from the launch of ChatGPT. We've now got the image models from Google. Has anyone played with Nano Banana? Yeah. Like things that I remember in the 90s, like buying the Photoshop books and like, you know, spending like hours just to remove the clouds or add clouds to like a picture in the background was like one of the tutorials. Like all the things that used to be like so manual, you're zooming in, going pixel by pixel. Now you could just literally talk to the image and say, hey, add some clouds, move this around. It's like the things that LLMs have gotten amazing at is kind of insane. And they're obviously like humanity, like beautifully flawed. It's kind of amazing that we've created a form of coding which is like just like us, like non-deterministic. But the thing that is magical at, like language translation, which you now have the real-time language translation in the AirPods, you have the image generation, some of the coding stuff is pretty amazing. So with AI and WordPress, we're trying to take an approach where we're empowering and not replacing people. And I really think that humans and AI working together are going to enable so much of what we're going to see. So we've got a little bit of a video here right now showing using Anthropic's Model Context Protocol, or MCP, which launched late last year, basically connecting to a WordPress site. And I think I have to click for this to play. Okay, here we go. So what's happening now is I want you to provide a concise, what did it say? Helpful information about my site. So it goes, it reads the site, talks to the MCP server, tells it how many active plugins, how much space it's using, and tell me about my top post and give me the top views and what should I blog more about. So it's hitting Jetpack stats and gathering all the stats. And so you can now, like, the AIs can now interact through with your blog in a way that's pretty exciting. So the MCP adapter that's coming to WordPress allows us to connect to all the different AI systems out there. And it's our first application of our new Abilities API. And we're going to have a whole panel on AI in a little bit. It exposes these AI abilities externally in a standardized way so any MCP-compatible tool can understand and use them. This adapter pattern means WordPress can participate in AI workflows without duplicating logic or creating separate integrations for every AI platform. So you can now connect a WordPress installation to popular tools like Claude, Copilot, and many other platforms that support MCP. And MCP aside, over in the terminal and IDE, Claude Code, Cursor, Client, and others to change code for the good means you can refactor projects, search code bases, automate tasks, run scripts with WP CLI alongside the AI agent. These LLM CLIs and development environments sync up with legacy automation. Write, test, and deploy a plugin now integrates generative AI with classic commands. We're bringing the best of both worlds and a whole new scale and velocity. So it's not just happening in chat interfaces, CLIs or IDEs, and WordPress integrations. This summer, I got early access to Comment, Perplexity's agentive browser. Gave me my first brain explode moment. I talked about it at WordCamp US. And now, ChatGPT, OpenAI has released their version of it. You can ask it to do things in WP Admin. So this is an example. And this is actually one of the things I'm not sure how things are going to play out, how much of AI is going to be embedded in the app, probably with things like image editing or translation, and how much is going to be sort of an agent that exists at your sort of operating system or browser level, has context of all your files, your data, your everything like that, but then can operate on the website. This is an example of, again, with not MCP or any other integration, just browser control from OpenAI's browser, doing all these things inside of WordPress, which is kind of insane. Now, one of the most important ways I think we can help AI and WordPress work together is actually in the realm of benchmarks and evals. So see, a big area of investment that we're going to do in 2026 is creating some benchmarks and evals that all the AI models can test themselves against for doing WordPress tasks. And that could be changing plugins, editing things, or with some of these browser agents, perhaps actually directly manipulating some of the interfaces. So let's get a little more hands-on. Let's show some actual things shipping in the WordPress space, real tools making real impact. So Hostinger lost Cody. Their AI assistant lives right inside of WordPress. You just can describe a site idea, and 60 seconds later, you've got a fully functional WordPress site. It's not a template or site. It actually writes your about page, your blog post, troubleshoot errors automatically. This is from one of the hosting companies that's a big supporter of WordPress. Elementor, and we actually have the CEO of Elementor here today. Thank you, Yoni and Miriam, coming in from Israel. So it doesn't just replace designers, it accelerates them. So their AI Copilot suggests entire sections, and they actually have 3 different forms of AI they're going to be doing. So we had a great meeting yesterday talking about all the fun AI stuff that Elementor's investing in. So we've got AI in Jetpack too. So now when you're writing Gutenberg, you can ask AI for a comparison table. You can ask it to adjust tone, to edit your text. There's all sorts of exciting things happening. Yoast is using AI for keyword clustering. Things that you used to have to pay a SEO consultant or things thousands of dollars to do are now just right in the interface and automatic. WordPress.com, we've built the AI site builder, sort of a big sky project, which you can describe what you want to do. And again, seconds later, it builds a fully functional site for you. And, when it works, it's magical. Sometimes it gets things a little bit wrong. But we're also the models are getting better every couple of months. And so everything that you use is the worst version of it that you're ever going to see. So just imagine this getting better and better and better. There's a bunch more AI engine and AI power, turn WordPress into automated conversational platforms. You have e-commerce stores now generating better product images and other things. So there's so much happening. And I do believe that AI is kind of the biggest technological revolution I've seen in my lifetime. It's on par with kind of electrification. So think of it as affecting every single industry, every single business, everything in the world is going to be influenced and augmented and accelerated by AI. You know, for us, I'm very excited about where it can help us automate things in terms of plugin reviews, theme reviews, translation, validation, and theme security. So, you know, there's so much that we've invested in, and particularly with the plugin. We'll talk a little bit about plugin reviews in a bit, but we're now able to do things, you know, because although there are a lot of contributors to WordPress, it is a relatively small number of people supporting a lot of software. When you think of how many countless millions lines of code are across that 74,000 plugins and themes and WordPress core itself. So AI being able to help us scan that code, find vulnerabilities, fix things, suggest things, is I think going to really accelerate the security of the web and the speed of our developments. And finally, I sort of dropped at WordCamp US a few months ago, the Telex project. So if you haven't tried this out yet, Telex is something that can create really interesting Gutenberg blocks. So you go in, you tell it something that you want, and it builds it, and it can build things. You can even ask it to build like an entire Doom game inside a Gutenberg block. You can see it at telex.automatic.ai. And I'm going to share a few real-world examples from my friend Nick Hamsey, who's using Telex not just as a demo tool, but as a backbone to a fully working shop. So something that he did is, so he actually created a pricing comparison thing. So you see Telex is working here. It just generated this entire pricing comparison thing. So again, something that a developer used to have to ask to build this custom is now just, again, what we saw in a few seconds, generating very rich interactive web elements. The header block of his izzisgym.com, which I guess is like a store that he has, pulls data from Google Places, giving real-time hours, a map link, and open and close status, just like the big chain stores, but it's for his little micro business. It's got a carousel of partner logos. This was built with Telex, no hand coding. A uniform post grid. He created a block so every postcard on the homepage has like same height. This calendar integration. So with Telex, he was able to build something that pulled in his Google Calendar data and was also optimized for mobile usability. And finally, a Lego price calculator. So I guess part of his business is like buying and selling people's Legos. And so he's got something in there where you can kind of put your Lego in there, and it'll tell him like what price he'll buy it at and discounts, and So again, things that you used to have to like hire developers, do custom software, like this would have cost thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to build, even just years ago. We're now able to do in a browser for pennies. It's kind of insane. If you want to check out some other cool things that have been happening, we have Tammy Lister, who's actually here today. Hi, Tammy. She did something very fun called Blocktober.fun, which is every single day in October, she built a new block using Telex, including a playable ASCII version of Tetris, a block that's an actual terminal window, a roadmap block, dot matrix effect, and a trick or treat block for Halloween. So democratization of technology is not just about smart AI. It's about like letting people do things, have access to the sort of creative energy. And I'm so excited to see, because every single one of us has like that sort of unique spark, has our unique ideas. And seeing that unleashed is going to be a very, very, very exciting time to be alive. So WordPress is about community. And so much of what we do is about training the next generations. So as we create these new capabilities, how do we teach people how to use it? So we're now going to talk about some education. I'm going to invite Mary Hubbard up to talk about some of the things we've been investing in to invest in the next generation of WordPress.
Fantastic.
So, a round of applause for Mary.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to hear about all the progress in our ecosystem and how AI amplifies what's possible in so many ways. We couldn't have imagined where we are or even where we're headed with this. But behind all the tech, it's people, and who people who make WordPress happen one day, one release, and one event at a time. And WordCamps are one of the most important ways that we bring people together to share, to learn, to celebrate what the community makes possible. Oops. And this year, we broke some pretty amazing ground with 81 WordCamps spanning over 39 countries, organized by over 5,200 volunteers, and reaching over 100,000 people in person. Yeah. Yes, that's unreal. And we actually still have 16 lined up, so before the end of the year, we're going to take it to 97. So that's before you factor in WordPress TV, or social media, and every other ways that folks can tune in. And so it's quite a leap from last year. So growing from the number of events by over a third in a single year is absolutely incredible. So hats off to everyone involved in making that happen. And these aren't just conferences, we know that. They're where community happens, where contributors meet, and where connections really turn into action. And WordCamps are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to bringing folks together to learn and to make stuff with WordPress. And of course, not everyone can get to a WordCamp, right? So that's why it's so important that there are more ways to connect and to pick up the platform and run with it from anywhere. And that's where learn.wordpress.org comes in. Learn.wordpress.org served more than 1.5 million users this year. And the engagement quality improved in a very meaningful way. After WordCamp US, the average engagement time per user increased by 32%, which tells us that students and contributors are spending real-time learning, not just passing through. People aren't just showing up, they're sticking around, and they want to learn, they want to build, and we're making sure that they can. WordPress.org reached more than 113 million users, and the new users grew by 38%. So that tells us the top of the funnel is expanding. The more people are discovering WordPress for the first time, right? And so the data shows us something that's very important. And users are landing on WordPress.org at a very high volume. And they're comparing platforms, they're looking for documentation, they're searching for a way into the ecosystem. And the path is not always clear. And this is exactly why education matters. Learn.wordpress.org, the WPCC, WordPress credits, our student organizations, they're giving people a structured way to go from curious visitor to confident builder. And once people reach the right resources, they stay and they learn. And the opportunity now is to close the gap between discovery and participation. So the work that we're doing in education is positioning WordPress to guide new users from awareness to skill building to contribution. And as we improve navigation and simplifying the experience, which is fantastic, we'll have an even stronger system that turns interest into long-term involvement. And so we are making progress, and the data shows that growth is at the edge of our ecosystem, and now we need to channel that growth into participation. And so that's how we're making it possible for anyone, anywhere, to learn, master, and contribute back to WordPress. So what excites me so much about how education is changing what is possible for WordPress and how we can bring new people into the platform, educate, train, teach, and on community, on campus. So Campus Connect started as an experiment, and it's already expanded across universities around the world. Students are learning WordPress, shipping real work, and earning academic credit for contributing to open source. So they're not just future contributors, they're contributing today. And education gives people the skills to use and all the new tools that are emerging in the ecosystem. So like Matt said, it's like a piano. So for years we had 1 octave, and now we have 8. So AI and new abilities open up more keys, more range, and more capability than ever before. But you still need someone who knows how to make music, someone who understands what a site should be, what businesses need, how to turn intention into execution. And that is why these programs matter so much. They prepare students not just to use WordPress, but to think, design, and build with a purpose. So the work used to be long hours of manual effort. Now the work is understanding the goal, shaping the idea, and knowing which keys to press. So the jobs don't disappear, they evolve, they shift. And Campus Connect and WordPress credits give us a pipeline of people who can thrive in that world. Humans still build the web, we're just giving them a better set of tools and a clearer path to get started. And WordPress has been investing heavily in global education. And these programs have opened the door for institutions to join us in creating a direct pathway for students into the open source ecosystem. A university in Costa Rica is a great example of what can happen when a university steps into opportunities that WordPress has built. Okay, I'm going to try very hard here. Felicitas Universidad. I tried. University in Costa Rica is where we launched the beta, and they've been an incredible partner to us. To tell you more about this and how we've come together, I'd love to invite Stephanie Garita Johnson from the Universidad Felicitas to the stage to tell us about.
Thank you. Don't worry. Thank you so much. Universidad Fidelitas has been committed to WordPress and its global community for years now. Long before we signed our agreement with the WordPress Foundation this year, we were already deeply involved in the ecosystem, hosting WordCamp San Jose and creating community spaces that brought students into the conversation. This year, we were excited to host WordPress Campus Connect San Jose. In September, this event was part of the broader academic engagement model to WordPress and brought together students, faculty, professional, and international contributors. It strengthened our role as a partner in connecting academia with the global open source community. From that experience comes the WordPress Fidelitas Club, a student-led initiative that's expanding learning opportunities and preparing new generation to participate in the global ecosystem through hands-on learning, leadership, and collaboration. After signing our agreement with the WordPress Foundation, we took the next step, formally integrating WordPress into our academic program for our computer system engineering degree. This established an structured model for students to participate in official WordPress credit process, where they earn recognition for real contributions, whatever to be code, design, documentation, accessibility, any and all of the essential areas. This aligns perfectly with our STEM model, which prioritizes hands-on learning, applied research, and solving real-world problems. WordPress has become a platform for developing digital skills, technological entrepreneurship, and other contribution right within our academic environment. We are proud to be building this bridge between the global WordPress community and the new generation who are creating the web of the future. I'm excited to see this impact spreading across Latin America. From this process, we gained key learnings that confirmed that academic and institutional value. What worked especially well was the early and sustained engagement of students from Universidad Fidelitas, combined with faculty guidance through clearly structured, mentor, and mindful contribution pathways. The integration with the official WordPress credits empowers students to make real contribution to the ecosystem while developing applied skills, leadership, and global visibility in a collaboration open source development environment. Some students also recognize that the stronger personal organization of their time will allow them to participate with an ever greater continuity, showing their awareness and ownership of their learning process. This feedback, far from dismissing the experience, highlights how rewarding the initiative has been overall and reinforces what is so exciting and worth trying for others. It demonstrates that the academia can become a trust gateway into the global open source contribution, unlocking inspiring opportunity for students to grow, lead, and contribute to the future of the web for a deeply satisfying education space. Thank you so much for having me here, and back to Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. That's amazing. All righty. It's amazing to see how WordPress is becoming like generally multi-generational. We now have like parent and child contributors. It's fun to see like the kid camp things that happens at different WordCamps, and As we just heard from Stephanie, like kids learning WordPress at school, they're teaching their younger siblings, and it's beautiful because this is a skill that then you can take with you the rest of your life. Something that you can use to in school to make money, to do creative projects, all sorts of things. The unexpected ambassador to all of this has been WAPU, which actually we got from our friends in the Japanese community. For those who don't know, it was the WordPress mascot. It was born in Japan in 2011, and one of the best gifts of a local community to the global WordPress community. Regions all over the world have made WAPU their own, and kids absolutely love it. It's funny because I always say, if anyone had asked me to approve this, I would have never approved WAPU. But WAPU just happened. He's actually GPL. And so it's totally open source, and it has become a sort of global phenomenon, and also amazing because at the core is people not just taking the original WAPU, but making it their own. And there are now thousands of variations. We're actually going to bring on a cool little WAPU museum on WordPress.org that we're going to try to spin up next year to just document all of the different ones all around the world. And that's even before you could ask AI to make new WAPUs. All the ones so far were manually created. So if you're here in the audience today or you're listening, consider teaching a younger generation to WordPress. Consider how you can bring them on. While all the competitors in the marketplace have grown often through spending countless millions or billions of dollars in marketing, WordPress hasn't had that. It's really been, peer-to-peer, person-to-person, word of mouth. People using it, learning, telling, and trying and failing, and then bringing other people along. It's not unlike how I got started at my very self, where the predecessor to WordPress was called B2. I started using it, and I had a question in the forums. So I went to the forums, asked a question, and because I was breaking it, I didn't know how to use it. And then one day I went to the forums to ask a question. I saw someone asking something that I already knew, even though it was brand new. So I thought, I'll reply to this person. And that was sort of my first little entree into contributing to an open source project, which of course later snowballed into code and now all this crazy stuff we're here today. So it can start with just the smallest step, and you never know where it's going to lead. So I want to mention Youth Day in Nicaragua. So Youth Day in Nicaragua is what happens if you give young creators the keys and just let them go. Back in October, 75 kids, and I mean kids, ages 8 to 20, showed up in Managua to build their first WordPress sites. Regional volunteers helped out, but the sessions were actually run by teenagers teaching other teenagers, which is kind of like the future right there. The whole day was hands-on, no boring lectures or PowerPoints like we're doing here. They sat down, picked the project they cared about, and built it. So the peer-led sessions met 16-year-olds who'd done this before, were showing the 10-year-olds how to pick a theme or add a contact form. That kind of learning sticks, and very similar to what I was doing when I was 17, 18, 19, exploring on the internet, asking questions, but then also trying to help other people as I learned. The attendance tripled compared to the 2024 pilot. So they got 75 participants when they were hoping for just about 30, and word spread. Kids were telling their friends, and this is now becoming a little bit viral. Oops, I think I get this. David Gonzalez, a volunteer at the Youth Day, created a video game, kind of Mario Bros. Style, and WAPU is the main character. The WAPU's name is aptly GamePoo. You can follow the link and play it right in your browser. This isn't just a one-off event anymore. People now are using WordPress as an entire development platform. So it's fun to see. I know for many of us who got started in computing, gaming was like one of the first things you did, right? And so being people actually have fun and play games with WordPress is pretty cool. I think we've got a little video here. Again, this was built at the Youth Day. I have to say, when we were starting WordPress as blogging software, I never imagined this. A CRUD application, right? You write some text in a box and we post it on the web page. now being used as a platform to build things like GamePoo. So, we're just getting started with this. This program is just brand new. And so I can't wait to see what people start to build and what they start to learn, and embracing open source technologies as a development framework, PHP, all the things that we've known to love. Part of the things about WordPress versus other development frameworks is its sort of accessibility, the way it kind of makes sense. You can, it's kind of easy to use. From Costa Rica to Nicaragua, dozens of other places, the momentum's building worldwide. So we had a couple pilot programs turning into a genuine movement. Next year is going to be wild. We're looking at expansion in Asia, Europe, and Latin America, and ramping up things in the States. So speaking of foundations, 6.9 is how it's all about. How are we doing on timing with the podcast, by the way? We're good? Yeah? There's a whole lot of API action going on, some AI developments. We've got AI agents and MCP, the Abilities API, HTML API, Block Buildings API, Interactive API. So 6.9 is really bringing a lot of foundational work. And to tell you more about that, let's hear from our lead architect, Matthias Ventura. So Matthias, howdy.
Thank you, Matt, and hello everyone. I wish I could be there in person. Let's dig into WordPress 6.9. Last year in Tokyo, we looked at what was new and upcoming through 4 lenses: write, design, build, and develop. Let's revisit them today to see what's new. We have a lot of beautiful additions to the writing and publishing process. First up, let's talk about collaboration, which is a big part of our current roadmap. WordPress 6.9 introduces notes to the blog editor for the first time. This allows authors, writers, and collaborators to leave comments and feedback directly inside the editor while working on a post. It has a beautiful design where comments are attached to specific blocks. When you select a comment, only the block is highlighted and the rest of the content fades away. Since these are also built as comments behind the scenes, you can receive email notifications when new notes are added. In the spirit of the feature, this was truly a collaborative effort in itself, with work from Fuel, Multidots, Automatic, GoDaddy, HumanMade, Articamp, as well as a contributor sponsored by Luz, Hostinger, and Kinsta. And finally, this is just the beginning of a full set of collaboration features that will make WordPress a true multiplayer experience. Let's also highlight one of my favorite small features. WordPress has always been about the potential of human expression, and now this is extended to math notation. You can now write beautiful math using blocks or through inline formatting. It all renders nicely and preserves the LaTeX formatting. You can access it through a popover, and the preview renders beautifully. Now moving into design. This WordPress release introduces several new blocks and design tools. Let's focus on just a few of them. First, there's a much better experience when using drag and drop, bringing a more intuitive and direct manipulation of blocks. It works across all sorts of block types, so you can drag a list item to reorder a list without having to hand down the drag handle in the toolbar. It's overall a lot more intuitive as you can manipulate the objects directly. For example, it makes it dead easy to put images side by side and construct galleries. You can drag the images themselves, no longer requiring to find the drag handle. It's overall more visual, more intuitive, and more reliable. Another small but big win is that gallery blocks now support aspect ratio attributes, so you can make all the images fit together seamlessly. There's also a new typography option called Stretchy Text, which automatically adjusts the font size to fill the dimensions of a container. This is done through the Interactivity API, and it updates in real time as you type in. It's perfect for hero sections, call to action areas, anywhere you want text that really fits the space. Another new block that had a lot of popular requests is the accordion block. It supports inner blocks for infinite possibilities and is built with Interactivity API for the best performance. You get a lot of options to customize, whether the accordion is open by default, whether and where to show an icon, along with many of the usual styling options. This was a long requested feature by theme authors and creators. When it comes to building sites with WordPress, there are also some incredible refinements and additions. Up until now, the command palette was restricted to editor context. It has now been made available across the entire admin experience, so you can now access it from any part of your site. This allows quick navigation between admin screens and is a step towards easier management of WordPress. Since the command palette is meant to be powered by abilities, it would also allow triggering several different sets of commands directly from anywhere in the WordPress interface. For a while now, container blocks have supported the ability to restrict what blocks can be inserted in a given area, but it required diving into code to set it up. Now this is available directly in the user interface, giving real control for site creators. You can provide highly usable flows without needing to create entirely custom blocks. There are also important enhancements to the usability of the navigation block, including a prominent edit navigation call to action when selecting a header or any template part that contains a navigation block. There's also more customization options for submenu opacity, which previously required adding custom CSS. And finally, the page creation flow is also improved with more clarity over whether a page is going to be drafted or published. WordPress 6.9 also brings the ability to hide blocks entirely from the front end. That means you can draft different designs or coming soon information directly in the editor and only show them when you're ready. And that's really just the start for a future which would support conditional display of blocks to allow for better responsive controls, from hiding and showing blocks based on screen size to broader controls for block visibility like login and logout views. And of course, plugins will be able to extend and register its own conditions. Finally, the block bindings user interface has been upgraded to improve how different data sources are displayed in the editor. Users can now easily switch between sources as well as bind and unbind attributes with a single click. Developers can also register their own custom sources. This is part of making blocks a lot more powerful and connected to the data structures of WordPress and its plugins by default. Let's now look at some of the developer tools shipping with WordPress 6.9. The New Abilities API sets in motion a common pattern that the entire ecosystem can adopt. This API creates a unified registry of functionality that can be discovered, validated, and executed consistently across different contexts, including PHP, the REST API endpoints, and future AI-powered integrations. This common language will power the evolution of the command palette and is being rapidly adopted for AI-driven workflows. The HTML API continues to enable new ways of reliably working with and modifying HTML code server-side. This effort is cutting down the complexity and the cost of modifying HTML within PHP. The safety and accuracy of the HTML API enables server-side rendering in the Interactivity API and brings dynamic content to Gutenberg with block bindings. It is a valuable tool for developers aiming for performance and reliability. Finally, for developers, theme authors, and block authors, the Interactivity API is maturing with smoother routing, better state management, and more performant interactive blocks. This means you can start building rich interactive user interfaces that match the state of the art, but without the trade-off of full JavaScript stacks. In terms of the broader WordPress ecosystem, this is a step closer to an interactive block islands architecture, similar to modern frameworks but baked into WordPress native tooling. It reduces fragmentation and provides a standard interactive front-end API. WordPress core is already using it to power multiple features, including some of the new blogs highlighted today. So that wraps up some of the main WordPress 6.9 features. I'll pass it now back to you, Matt. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and I've heard that the stream is back online. So sorry for some of the technical difficulties. So that's 6.9 through the 4 lenses we discussed: writing, designing, building, and development. But there is more. Oops. So previously, the plugin checker was a plugin that we had to help plugin authors apply, security measures, look at things, and sort of do it before upload. But now with AI, going from doing 10 reviews in 10 minutes, we can now do reviews way faster than we were able to before. So we're seeing about 100 more submissions to the plugin directory per week than we did in 2024. So before, where we had this huge queue, as I talked about at WordCamp US, backlog of plugin reviews, we're now under 7 business days for getting new plugins up in the directory. This was a volunteer crew from all over the world. Now, with the plugin check plugin, plugin check plugin, it's plugins all the way down. Updates to plugins are also being checked, where before we only checked new submissions. And so basically we're going to be able to upgrade the code quality and security and everything of every plugin in the world, which I'm sure as you read the news or something, whenever you see a headline in the news about there's a problem with a WordPress sites, if the news site is good, they say it's a WordPress plugin. It's usually not core. I mean, we're human, so we'll have problems before, knock on wood. But typically around those 60,000 plugins and themes, that's where some combination of them or some smaller one that maybe has like less resources or more newer developers is where some of the issues come from. So, but I think using AI, and education, we're going to be able to really upgrade the security and the basically the web, which is kind of exciting. And I really appreciate all the contributions that we're getting from Google and other places to help us do this. So, as I've said before, I want WordPress to be the gold standard of data liberation and interoperability. One quality of life improvement we're shipping with 6.9 is the WordPress importer, and it's the author mapping step, which now has a new checkbox that lets you turn URL rewriting on or off. Checked by default means that during import, the system automatically updates the old links, things that you used to have to use search and replace for or do manually, taking the old site's URLs with the new ones. So everything works seamlessly once the content is live. And we're going to continue making investments in data liberation and improving importers. I want WordPress to be the place that you can take content from anywhere, and then once it's in WordPress, as you know, for the rest of your life, you'll be able to get it out into any API, any export, anything. It'll belong to you. So last year we spoke about what's to do with WordPress Playground. Playground has been updated with a new file browser, so you can now create, edit, and test files directly from your browser. There's also a visual gallery of blueprints that are great starting points for different types of sites. So think of this almost like a recipe. So you can take, again, with just a link, you can take a set of themes, plugins, customizations, everything, and apply it to a WordPress Playground. And again, Playground is the thing that allows you to boot up an entire container of WordPress in your browser in seconds. Again, things that before used to have a server or set up a cloud or set up databases and everything like that. WordPress Studio, which is the open source development app based on Playground, now includes blueprints as a starting guide. And now we have a command line interface, the Playground CLI, which reached stable in October. So this has new features for developers, including Xdebug support and options for AI-assisted developments. With all the WordPress recommended PHP extensions and MySQL emulation now in Playground, it supports now more than 99% of the plugin directory. It even supports PHP, MyAdmin, Composer, and Laravel. very cool. Blueprints can now load files directly from Git repositories, even private ones. So you can bring private Git code right into Playground. The all-new all-PHP blueprints.phar CLI commands can run everywhere that you can run WordPress. Since the last day of the word, you used Playground 1.4 million times from 227 countries to showcase your plugins, try code changes, and teach others. And we've now translated Playground docs into 6 languages. Oops. And now, something I'm very excited about for plugin authors, when you release an update, there's now a 24-hour safety window before it releases sites with auto updates enabled. So if your update goes live immediately, anyone checking for updates can manually grab it right away. But for sites with automatic updates enabled, there'll be a 24-hour window. So that way, if something breaks, you can hear about from early adopters. People update manually. They can give you the feedback. And it's the first step towards what we want to get to, which is percentage-based rollouts, something that app stores like the Google Play Store and iOS Store roll. So you'll be able to roll it out to, say, 10% of sites, 20% of sites, 50% of sites, so on. So again, improving things for plugin developers. some claps from some plugin developers here. Again, we're auto-updating code across millions of sites in very heterogeneous environments, like everything from like Raspberry Pis to big cloud servers on like Google or AWS. And so running WordPress in all these different environments, there's lots of edge cases. So giving developers the tools to be able to like reliably ship software to all these different places is going to be so powerful. We'd love feedback from the community to make this even more useful. So there's a lot to be excited about. And one of the things I'm also excited about is using AI more thoughtfully. So we're actually going to pull up a little panel here. We've got James LePage, who leads AI at Automatic. We've got Mary Hubbard, Felix Arntz from Google, and Jeff Paul from 10up. I'm going to join. We're going to do a little panel on WordPress and AI, the path forward. So.
And actually, while you're up here, Matt, I brought you a chair so you can join as well. So it's a little last minute, but since Matt did such a great job with AI, I asked him to join. All right, thank you. So I mentioned a little earlier, we actually launched the WordPress AI team in the project earlier this year. And so you're looking at the majority of the folks that are helping out, leading the way. And in general, the new tools, they're landing every single week. And so I want to just jump right into the panel. I think everyone's heard me talk enough. So the first, I'd like to ask you, James, there has been a lot happening in 6.8, and a lot of the AI work is actually landing alongside 6.9. So can you just fill us in what's actually shipped, and what are the foundational pieces of AI for WordPress?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first off, hello, everybody. Great to see you all. There's been a lot going on in AI and WordPress for a while now. So quick history lesson, the Core AI group was created and announced about 6 months ago. When we were created about 6 months ago, we published a strategy called AI Building Blocks, and that represented the work that we wanted to do moving into the future. But that strategy was something that we put together informed by years of thought and effort into AI. Matt mentioned Learn AI Deeply in 2022. We then moved on in 2023 to begin officially messaging around AI through the project. And we also tracked where the industry was going and what was happening in terms of AI models, what their capabilities were, what they were good at, what they weren't good at. So when we were announced 6 months ago, all of that thought and effort went into that announcement and went into the work around creating this strategy, this roadmap of building blocks. To directly answer your question, the building blocks, we have 4. And when we announced 6 months ago, I did not expect to say that all 4 are delivered for 6.9, but they are. They are. Thank you.
Incredible work from the team. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and we should absolutely direct those applauds to the contributors and the team that actually built all of this. So to go through these 4, we have the Abilities API, was mentioned a few times in the presentation. And that is this unified registry of logic that allows both humans and AI systems to understand what can be done on WordPress. And it gives basically a list of, here's what you can do. And to do it, here's the information that we need. And here's what the expected outcome of running a single ability is. And that's really exciting in isolation. You can use it to go and create a whole bunch of different things like commands for the command palette, for REST API endpoints, CLI, things like that. But for WordPress, you can basically box up a bunch of these abilities, give it to an LLM and say, LLM, go run these things. Go, I want to do something. Go read through this list and choose the right ability for the job. And that in isolation is an agent. So we've made it very easy to build agents into WordPress and around WordPress. The second big package is the WP AI client, or WP client AI client. I always mix these up. We have tongue twister names. This is something that allows us to immediately and directly interface with LLMs from WordPress. And Felix actually architected most of it, so I'll let him speak more about it. But something I'm very excited about is that it just released a version 0.2.0 yesterday, and that includes direct support for abilities. So you can now provide abilities to an LLM from OpenAI or Anthropic or Google or whoever you want and say, go run these abilities and create those agents that I just mentioned. We also have the MCP adapter Matt mentioned during his presentation, version 0.3.0. You can use that to take all your abilities, connect it off to a third-party service like Claude or OpenAI, and have a AI pilot your WordPress website through this abilities adapted out through this protocol. The adapter pattern is really exciting to me because it's very persistent. It means that we can expose things out to MCP, but say MCP changes and we really don't like it anymore, we can go and adapt out to another protocol very easily. Then finally, all of this surfaces in the AI Experiments plugin, which is a representation for developers on how you can use these blocks. But it's also something for end users to actually use AI features in WordPress powered by the blocks that we've created. And it is now on the WordPress plugins repository. And I'll let Jeff speak more about that, but that is a big, big milestone. So that's what is in 6.9, and that's what we said we were going to do, and we didn't expect to do it all by 6.9, but we did. So here we are.
So let's talk a little bit about the PHP. Do you want to add and talk about what you've architected?
Yeah, so I mean the WordPress, or I mean WP AI client or WordPress AI client, whatever you call it. The WP AI client is it allows you to communicate with any kinds of generative AI models with a uniform API. So what that means, taking a step back here, is whenever any of us uses, let's say ChatGPT or Gemini app or whatever you use, in the backend, there's some AI model running or some group of AI models, and all of these they are from different providers, though, right? Like you have Google as one of the popular providers, OpenAI or Anthropic. Those are just three examples, but there are several dozens of different providers that have AI models, and I think in practice, many of us have some preference for whatever reason. Maybe we just have started getting a subscription with one, and that's why we use that one all the time. Because that's the thing, like all of these cloud-based providers, they provide state-of-the-art models. They're super capable at solving any kinds of different tasks or doing complex research for us. They are proprietary though, and they are paid. So we, as WordPress, as the open platform that we are, we cannot and we should not promote any particular one or even enforce it. So what this WordPress, that's where the WordPress AI client comes in, and it provides an abstraction layer where you can, as a developer, just prompt AI, and you don't need to worry what model is running behind. So, and the way that this works in practice is that when this is available on the WordPress site, the user can, for example, configure whichever AI provider they want to use, or they can configure multiple AI providers, and and then things just work. Like the plugin developers that want to use this AI, the WP AI client, they can simply write a prompt, and let's say for example you want to have one of these prompts like generate the post title based on this post content, blah 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 blah, right? Like that could be a prompt that you want to have for like a title generation feature, and what happens under the hood? That's really like this prompt is really what you need to all that you need to provide. And what happens under the hood then is that the AI client checks which models, which providers are available on the concrete WordPress site that this is running on, and then it also determines which ones are best suitable to respond to this particular query. So that way, things remain really agnostic. Like and like their site owner controls which models they want to use, and the plugins work no matter which models are configured, and that's important. Yeah, that's important for us to remain open and also to remain adaptable to whatever is the latest models and the latest different provider models that people want to use.
Great. And so Jeff, you've been more involved on the agency side of building things. So what experiments are you seeing in the wild right now?
Sure, there's some things that are predictable, like chat-based search, to parallel something that might be, a historical Elasticpress-based search. There are things that have been technically and highly manual, like content distribution and translation out to, multi-site or different WordPress installs. And then things like leveraging in-browser and local models that are private, that are more affordable compared to cloud models, as well as for the WordPress project that are more aligned with the licensing of the project. So those are some things that are that we're seeing. And then in terms of something that is really relatively new and in line with WordPress 6.9 is leveraging the block notes and providing feedback on content and suggestions. So like accessibility recommendations or aligning to tone of a certain brand, and having those in notes aligned in the editor is something that is literally just being built right now, and is pretty exciting to see people leveraging stuff that has just been shipped in the last 6 months with this team, as well as what's coming in 6.9. So really bleeding edge right there, pretty exciting.
I'm still blown away that the team started 6 months ago. It feels like it's been much, much longer.
But
AI,
it's
like dog years.
Yeah.
Like 1 month in
So
AI is
fast.
like a year in like normal development time.
you say 6 months, and for AI time, that's like 6 years.
Yes.
So.
And so I mean that's a great point. And how is this team and how is WordPress going to stay, like, I guess not even keep up but surpass? Like, how is WordPress going to continue to push the boundary and ensure that we are on the forefront of AI?
That's a good question. It really stems back to creating the foundational pieces of WordPress to build AI, and then seeing what the ecosystem does. So if you look back to WordPress itself, it gave the frameworks to go create plugins, and then you ended up with humongous e-commerce solutions and learning management tools and things that I bet you, Matt, did not expect to blossom here.
Oh my goodness, the stuff we saw. I think it all comes back to each of us, though, right? Because what is WordPress? It's created by each of us, some of us here in the room, people all around the world. And so that whole learn AI deeply thing, I don't even think I need to ask it anymore. Like, just everyone's going to end up doing it. And so I don't worry about it causing a surpassing. I think it's actually going to embed, at every single part of everything we do is going to be, changed in sometimes small, sometimes big ways with people using AI tools. That could be even just little things, like perhaps it's like helping you filter your spam better on your email, or like, just helping you at some part of your life. And then that gives you more time to do a little coding or something like that. But it'll start to, again, be persuasive and ubiquitous. And I love that you brought up the open source models. Something I wouldn't have predicted was, with the countless billions being spent and the huge, it's kind of amazing seeing all the biggest companies in the world spending the most money we've ever seen. Like huge parts of all of GDP growth is coming from the investments in these data centers and other things. I kind of assumed that open source was going to be, years behind. In fact, we've seen some of these open source models catch up pretty quickly. And in fact, with the DeepSeek release just the other days ago, the benchmarks can sometimes be games. So, benchmarks versus real world use or whatever, but testing very, very well. So the models out of China, France, other places in the world that are open source, open weights, a lot of exciting things that are happening. So I'm very, both the depth and the incredible things coming from the frontier investments. And when you think of some of the smartest minds in the world are now working on this problem, combined with kind of like, the open source kind of, creating some ubiquity, low cost of access, maybe creating some innovations, which then filter back into some of the frontier things. This sort of feedback loop of having the whole world kind of working on the same thing at the same time is pretty exciting, and something we've seen only a few times in history. When you think of like how the world came together to address COVID or other things, like when you kind of get like everyone working on kind of a similar problem, like we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
To add to the open source models, there's very encouraging developments happening there right now, like in like Chrome and Edge already have built-in models in the browsers. So that's going to be really powerful once this is fully rolled out, because it will mean that anybody using these browsers, they will just have AI models without doing any configuration, and these AI models are free to use, and they are more privacy friendly because you don't send anything to any cloud. And that's also something that we're actively working towards to support in the WordPress AI client and all the surrounding projects to keep things open-minded, right? Like we have client-side models that are local to the machine on the user's machine. We have the cloud-based models, and we can also do hybrid approaches where maybe you can have different ideas where like you may use a cloud model for one task and the client-side model for another task, or you could do it so that if a cloud model is not available for the task, I use a client-side model or something like that. There's different ways to combine them. And I think the way that we're approaching those foundational blocks really sets us up for being flexible and adaptable for the future. Like those models move so fast, the different technologies around them move so fast, like James already said. Like if MCP at some point, I cannot predict this, if MCP is going to be the gold standard for long term, maybe then we're already set up. If tomorrow something new comes out and the ecosystem shifts towards it, we have the Abilities API, which is our own foundational building block. We didn't develop against some very specific technology. And that's going to be the same with the concrete models. And that's those two building blocks, the Abilities API and the WordPress AI client, really allow us to remain agnostic and adaptable.
Yes, I love that because it's continued flexibility.
I think if you asked me 2 years ago if WordPress would have first-class tooling to build AI and agents, I'd be like, I don't know. You know? But now
it's blogging software, right? Like, it's just a blog.
We do have that, and it sits directly beside content, which is king in an AI era. So it's really fun to see not just these come together, but actually build with them and contribute to the AI Experiments plugin and just see how easy it is. It's awesome.
Well, it's great to talk about vision and what your long-term plan is. But I think for people in this group or even people watching, what are we doing for 7.0? Like, what's the immediate next step?
I have to open my notebook of 7.0.
I mean, right. What are we thinking about for?
So there are a few things coming in the near future and the long future, and I'll cover both. Near term, the Abilities API is going to continue to improve. We shipped the server half of it, but we're shipping this client half of it in 7.0. And that gives you complete coverage of the entire software of WordPress. It allows us to easily, in the future, interact with AI browsers more effectively. It's pretty impressive. But we're also introducing a sister API that sits besides the Abilities API, and that's workflows. And you might have actually seen an Easter egg in the code snippet from Matthias that said workflows. Abilities are awesome. They're individual units of what you can do on a WordPress site, but they can become really powerful when you string them together. And you have more determinism, and I know that when an email happens, or when an order happens in WooCommerce, I'm going to send an email. These are two abilities. I string them together, and they run on a trigger, or they run when I command palette them. And that API is going to be a very, very powerful and interesting one. It will also be able to be adapted out, exposed through MCP, and really create a foundational piece of WordPress to do automations and some really interesting stuff with AI. We also have the WP AI client, that exciting thing that Felix mentioned, coming to 7.0 as well. And the plumbing to interact with AI will be a core piece of WordPress, which means that everybody who builds these features, everybody who builds plugins, can build in a unified way. And that allows us to go and easily plug into providers like Google, but also easily have a host or an agency offer a provider of their own. And any plugin that uses this API will immediately have AI. So I don't want to completely say we're democratizing AI, but we are democratizing access to AI through this inclusion.
Well, it's fun because you're bringing kind of like the ethos of WordPress with some of this new technology.
Yes,
so we can kind of like, provide the access. It's kind of cool how Abilities API has a lot of parallels to the sort of plugin hook and filter system.
Yes.
Which was kind of the big innovation of like WordPress's plugin system. So it's kind of like it feels to me like a next generation of that.
Yeah, and it's also the big three, also actions in WordPress. You can trigger workflows and abilities through actions as well. So I think there's a lot of like new and old merging together. It's exciting to me. Final on my list is and Jeff mentioned this, but the overlap with collaborative editing. So that's a very big cornerstone feature of WordPress 7.0, phase 3. And I think when it was designed, we didn't necessarily design it with the intention of AI being the way AI is today. But there's a very, very natural and helpful overlap there where collaborative editing means there are other entities sitting next to you on a page helping you edit and create. And we always expected it to be people, right?
Again, when we announced the Gutenberg roadmap, I thought collaboration was going to be people.
Yeah.
It might be robots.
Exactly. So I think that's a really good also roundup of this is how WordPress wants to empower people. It's not we're going to just add sparkle buttons everywhere. We're going to do crazy stuff here. It's more that we're going to build into the way you interact with creating content, with expressing yourself digitally, and give you more power, more control, and make you more effective at creating. So that overlap with collaborative editing through block notes, through the actual collaboration aspect, suggestions, a lot coming in the future there. I can see really clear coverage there. I can also go long-term if we want.
I'd love to hear long-term. I think that we have the time for it, too.
Cool. Let's go
What are we thinking?
a little longer term. And Matt, feel free to jump in and interject. But
Everybody, feel free. I'd love to-
WordPress has been around for 20 years, and we want it to be around for the next 20 years. And the next 20 years looks like WordPress remaining what it is today, which is the center of the open web. That open web is going to change. It will move and shift and change as AI changes the way people consume content and create online. But I do expect the open web to be something that can be a cornerstone feature. I mentioned before, content is king. AI needs content to run well. We don't have OpenAI robots flying around reporting the news. We have to report the news. We have to manage the content. We have to create and express ourselves digitally. I was thinking a few days ago, the act of writing and publishing is almost more important now with AI because I want my thoughts. I want who I am. And the story of how Abilities API was created, which I published on my blog, I want when people ask that to ChatGPT for it to show up. So creating these fundamental systems allows us to create a piece of software that does also adapt with the open web and remain that central place that humans express themselves. And that's what we expect to continue pushing towards with 7.0, but also into the future as well, and introducing these foundational, fundamental pieces to go and build really interesting and expressive solutions for you in a unified way. I have two asks for people, especially developers and hosts. We have introduced these blocks to be used, and the people who operate within WordPress are the plugin developers, and they are the hosts. And for the plugin developers, we really ask you to take a look at these abilities and use them to create AI features yourself, but also expose the existing functionality of your tools out to the AI assistants that are coming to WordPress, the ones that can already interact through MCP. Use the blocks. Go and use the WP AI client to go build AI features into your software. And for the developers, really track the WP AI client, or for the hosts, really track the WP AI client. I can easily see a world where all hosts, and I know that 3 major hosts already, will provide bundled AI credits into their plans, which means that you will have AI out of the box for any plugin that uses this API and interacts and says, I will fall back to whatever provider is available. And that means AI can become a commodity, and it becomes something that everybody can use, everybody has access to, and it really pushes us back to plugins extending WordPress, working with AI, and not being this core primary feature, but just something that supercharges the way we work with WordPress. So those are the 2 asks there. The final ask is for everybody to go try the AI Experiments plugin. It's on the WordPress repository as of, I think, yesterday. Yesterday. So wordpress.org/plugin/AI. That's a representation of features that you can actually use, but also the blocks working together. And that will be a way we deliver really impressive features into the future. You can also contribute to that as well. So those are my asks.
Those are fantastic asks. Theus, do you have anything that you'd like to say? Final thoughts.
Not much to add. I mean, yeah, try out the Abilities API and the WPI client. Let us know whether anything's not working well for you. Break things, try crazy prompts, and I want to add again to the Abilities API. I really want to emphasize that the Abilities API, it helps us facilitate AI, and this is an AI panel. But the Abilities API is relevant for pretty much any plugin. Even if you're as a plugin developer, you don't care about using AI, you still might want to use the Abilities API to expose your features in this standardized way that the Abilities API allows you to do, so that any AI integrations in WordPress that someone else builds can use that, and that makes your plugin better to the ecosystem.
And the global command palette that was mentioned here will use abilities.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And Jeff, any final thoughts?
Just that there's more coming in the experiments plugin for non-technical users, things that are table stakes functionality like excerpt generation, image generation, alt text generation, slightly farther future things like design and layout assistance. So kind of like how Telex lets you build blocks, also being able to do that in the site editor with templates and patterns. And then for developer experience sort of tooling, there'll be an abilities explorer, so you can see the inputs and outputs of the abilities that are live on your site. There'll be an MCP demo to try and play with the tooling there. And then also an AI playground just to kind of test out how prompts work with the different models you might be using. So some things that are a bit more technical that are coming, some things that are a bit more table stakes, and then some things that are in the not too far future but coming.
Right. And then Matt, you've already said today, a couple of years ago, learn deeply. What would you say today from not just the community, from the developers, from everybody? What would you say? Your final thoughts?
Nothing to add. Y'all put it so beautifully, and so I just thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So at this point, thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all. I learn so much from all the people who work in WordPress every day. And you see it on the panel. One of the coolest parts about getting involved with WordPress or any open source project is you get to work with all the other cool people who are contributing and doing it. And you'll become someone who learns and gets to, get very, very inspired by sort of my colleagues, both on the volunteer and on the automatic side every day. So we've covered a lot today. So like we said, with AI, I think that we're going to be able to not replace, but literally augment so much of what we're doing. The AI client, the Abilities API, everything we've been working on. Very excited to see what we do. We're going to break for just 2 minutes and then head into Q&A. Does that sound good? All right. I've been doing this since 2003. Some of you were in the room in Tokyo last year. Some of you were at the first WordCamp San Francisco in 2006. We have a few folks here that we planned with 2 or 3 weeks of ahead of time. Some contributors to WordPress weren't even born when WordPress 1.0 came out, which is really wild to me. But I just want to say thank you. Phase 3 is here. We've got blocks, themes, collaboration, perhaps going into multilingual soon, but we'll see. If you're not on Make Team yet, please get involved. And I just want to say thank you all. All right. All righty. What's Matthew McConaughey say? All right. All right, so now for my favorite part of every State of the Word or WordCamp or anything, which is the question and answers. So we've got some mic runners around here. We're going to run around the room. So if you have a question, let's open this up. We took a little break so you can think of questions.
Boy, no one wants to be the first one. Hey, Matt, Robert Jacoby, Blackwall. I have a question about WordPress getting faster and faster. Now we have more endpoints and things to connect to with AI, and now we also have wonderful single points of failure like Cloudflare. And how is something like Cloudflare going to impact, in fact, get in the way of having AI do those things that it wants to do?
Not sure the connection between Cloudflare or AI. Could you
Just
explain
like the edge caching and all of that, and how that would maybe impact agentic work and all that.
Oh, well, I think, anytime you have a service as sort of powerful and successful as Cloudflare gets adopted. And so inevitably, when any internet service, something happens, you really notice it. Like when AWS East 2 goes down, you're like, wow, so much of the web happened. But I think also what happens is every time this happens, we learn from it. And both as consumers of these services, you develop more like sort of elegant failovers. And of course, you can imagine all the engineers at the company where something happened to fail, which again is going to happen to all of us at some point. Learn from that. And so I think in technology, we always try to make new mistakes and just sort of see so every failure, every edge case, everything that you never imagined is just another opportunity to find that new edge case. And then once you build the resiliency around it, hopefully, nothing happens. You knock on wood for a little while. you thank the deity to be like, wow, by the grace of God, go us. It didn't happen to us this time. But then you kind of see what the new bottlenecks are, and these things are being scaled and adopted so quickly, like the amount of traffic flowing over the internet, the usage, as you talked about, that we're going to have with LLMs. So I guess to more go to the point a little bit, although the frontier models and everything have incredible capabilities with things like the AI sort of abstraction layer we built in WordPress. You could have failovers. So if you're calling one model and it's not returning in time or not returning a result you expect, you could fail over to a different model. Or, as Felix brought up, some of these things that are going to be running directly in the browser or others. My expectation is that you don't need to call like the multi-gigawatt XAI data center with nuclear power plants powering it to maybe check your spelling or something. So I imagine that in the future we'll actually have hundreds, if not thousands, of different specialized models that might be tuned for different things. And in fact, in some of our work at Automatic around like our site builder, we're finding that models that are tuned specifically for logo creation or other things can be essentially fine-tuned or smaller, cheaper to run, sort of less memory, et cetera, can do more specialized tasks. And so, again, thinking of them like little robots that can be specialized, these agents that you might call for different things, and the agents are going to talk to each other, they're going to interact with them, and I imagine not unlike when you load a WordPress page, it's making, dozens of database calls and calling different functions and everything like that, that's computing in the future. As we use our devices, they'll be in the background, dozens, if not hundreds of different models running to do different things. Listening for when you say, I'm not going to say the catchword because I'll activate it for everyone, the hey, whatever, or whatever, the things that activate the different voice assistants. And so, yeah, that's where I think it's going. Thank you, Robert.
Hey, Matt. I really love the collaborative commenting and everything in the editor that's coming up. I think it introduces sort of a whole new dynamic for WordPress. Can you maybe give us an idea of where that could be going in the future? What other multiplayer, real-time things might be coming?
Well, yeah. So for those who don't know, the collaborative editing is basically if you use Google Docs or Notion or one of these sort of things where editing a document becomes multiplayer, as you put it. I love putting it in a game analogy. In WordPress, you'll be able to see people editing things and moving things. We're doing this just inside of Gutenberg right now, but I could definitely imagine a future where you could think of the entirety of WP admin and all the things plugins they're building on it, having some sort of way to have state or streaming updates, so that we have a little bit of this right now, some things on the, does the comment page stream new things? No, it does if you moderate or you remove stuff, it'll bring something new in, but I don't think it brings a new comment in. But for things like the P2 theme for WordPress, you sort of have a real time when you load a page in P2, which is this kind of collaborative, think of it like a collaborative real-time blog built on top of WordPress. When a new comment comes in or an edit, it streams live. So you kind of get this more interactive way of having a conversation. You don't have to reload the page or get a notification. So now there's probably different parts that could be better or worse. Bo, who, for those who don't know, leads the WooCommerce project, which is this little open source e-commerce plugin for WordPress, which is now, I think, running on 8% of all websites or something. 8.9% of all websites are running WooCommerce, and it's doing tens of billions of sort of goods and services sold every year. So you could imagine something like an orders page, something like that, like a merchant sort of watching new orders stream in real time, could be kind of exciting places. And so what I hope is that as we develop these things inside Gutenberg, we can create the abstractions, just like we have with AI, that allow other developers to tap into some of this. And then, as we mentioned in the AI panel, like the idea that perhaps some of the collaboration or feedback might be coming from sort of specialized agents. And there's some very cool things I've seen. The name's escaping me at the second, but like where you can kind of have a website design, and it can, an agent that comes in and says, here's some accessibility tips, or here's some, copy design tips, or here's some layout tips. You could imagine like sort of different sort of like, WAPU like bots, maybe different flavors of WAPU coming in and suggesting different things for your site. So, cool, thank you. By the way, just to give a heads up, we're going to do something very unusual for this. So has anyone heard of TBPN? It stands for the Technology Business Podcast Network, I think. So imagine like ESPN, but for tech. So every day they do a 3-hour live stream, which is these two guys, Jordan and Jordy, sort of do like an ESPN style where they'll bring people in. The GitHub conference the other day, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, he didn't go on CNBC or Bloomberg, he went on TBPN. So we're actually going to patch in TBPN. So we'll have about 20 minutes where it'll connect sort of our audience to this broader, it's kind of the new hot show in tech. So it's an experiment, so we'll see if it works, and internet hopefully stays up and everything, but it should be kind of fun. So we'll have some questions from them that we're kind of switching to maybe, talking about some WordPress stuff for a more mainstream audience. So that'll come in a few minutes. All right, I think let's go over here. Wait for the mic. And please introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Ray King with a domain registrar called Porkbun, and I'm wondering with all the changes we're seeing, which are monumental, I think, in this period of time, how you feel domain names will continue to play a part in identity for people on the web.
Oh, that's such a good question. and I'm glad you asked it, because you and I are probably both domain name enthusiasts. When you think about a DNS and the domain name system, which is at the heart of the open internet, is one of the most incredible systems that we've created in the past 40 or 50 years. And the cool thing about a domain is when you own a domain, it's like your real estate on the web. It's a thing that truly belongs to you. I've said before in previous talks that it's great to be a subdomain or subdirector in someone else's domain. And we offer that on WordPress.com. You can be username.wordpress.com. That's free. But at the end, you're kind of like a digital sharecropper, right? That doesn't actually belong to you. It's more like renting an apartment in someone else's building. And if they decide to kick you out of that building someday, or the building goes out of business, all of a sudden that URL goes away, as we've seen with countless times with services like GeoCities and others just disappearing from the internet. And luckily we have things like the Internet Archive Project. Shout out to archive.org, which tries to, which the WordPress Foundation also donates to. And we just launched a very cool Internet Archive plugin. So check that out. So there's now a cool new official plugin developed with support from Automatic and the Internet Archive that'll actually automatically scan all your blog posts and update links that go out of that's break and update them to an archive.org link on the Wayback Machine. So visitors to your blog post will now see like a snapshot of what you were linking to at the time, even if it goes away. But to go back, like when these things go offline, you don't have any recourse. So now the plus and minus of domains is like they expire. At Automatic, WordPress.com, we now offer a 100-year domain plan, as well as a 100-year hosting plan that does some things to sort of like ensure the continuity of that. But there still is sort of a way of maintenance, and I'm curious in the future of seeing ways that even if like the original owner of a domain is no longer paying for it, that perhaps other people could gift or donate. We actually have a feature like this on WordPress.com where if for some reason like a site owner is no longer paying for their plan, you could sort of gift them a plan. So having a way that sort of, just like important books keep getting reprinted or things, ways that we can keep domains online. And, we've been around the internet long enough that I have had friends that have passed and their domains have gone into disuse, or even worse, get snatched up by like a domain squatter or something. So that's the one thing I'd like to see improved in domains in the future. but I think it is a very important system. And everyone in here, get your domain. If you have a kid, buy their domain. I have some friends here who had a beautiful child that as their gift when they were born, I was able to get them their firstname.com. So she's not using it yet. She's how old now? 4. So, not using WordPress yet, although hopefully come to some WordCamps in a few years. Oh, nice. With the AI assistant, she might start playing some things or building some games or things like that. Like, I could totally see her. She's a very precocious, smart little girl. But I hope that someday, she might have a site there or use it for her sort of portfolio, or even just having a little link in bio type site. Just a little place on the web that belongs to you. So when people search, they're not just seeing your profiles on different social media, but a place that actually belongs to you. My sister, that's your domain. Was it charlene.mullenway.com? Has a nice little one-pager. It's like a little bio, links to a few other places and things she does. I think every person on the internet should have one of these. Actually, Gravatar, which is the globally recognized avatar service built into WordPress and other things, we now support domain mapping. So it's a very, very simple way to create like a nice one-pager with some links, and you can link your different verified social media profiles. You can link to sort of crypto wallets, all sorts of different things, all on one page, and now you can map a domain to it. So I'm hoping also to see like domains get built into more things. I love that new services like Blue Sky, actually allow you to map a domain as a username. So on Blue Sky, I'm at ma.tt, which is kind of fun. And so, seeing this sort of like globally namespace, which is actually about to open up again. We're about to have some new TLDs. So for the first time in how many years? 2012 was the last round of new TLDs. TLDs was after the dot. So originally there was like .com, .org, .net, and a bunch of country ones. And then in 2012, there started to be all these new ones, like .blog, which is one of ours, but .engineering, .lawyer. .ai is actually a country, a very lucky country. What is it? In Anguilla. So there's like a .tv as well that happened to be a country code, but there's all these other ones. And now in 2026, there's going to be a new round of these new .somethings. What was nice about that is, as you know, like the .coms, some of the good ones got taken early on. So opening up these new namespaces and also people getting normalized to use these other .somethings, I think is really, really cool, because everyone should be able to have a memorable domain name. Cool. How are we doing on timing with the podcast and everything? We're almost ready. Cool. So maybe time for one more quick question. Yeah.
Hello. My name is David Prager. I work with Automatic. So I was thinking about what James LePage was saying about content and humans creating content, and everyone has a blog. You got to go create the news. You got to peddle your wares and peddle your services. But the agentic web is kind of changing some of that. People used to talk about SEO, and now you're talking about how do you get discovered by all these frontier models. And how do you see website creation, website design as it relates to how people will be using AI agents to do some of their biddings for them?
Ooh, this is a very interesting area where I think we're just at the very beginning. So interrupt me when we need to switch over. But there's some fun stuff happening here. I think Parag Agrawal's new company called Parallels, which is sort of thinking about like what it looks like for an agentic web. So, and we're seeing it in our traffic patterns. Cloudflare's talked about this. I think I've talked about it publicly before, where the amount of traffic coming from AI bots crawling is now dwarfing some of the human traffic. And this is just with some of them doing the indexing of the web, much less sort of the real-time interactions that'll happen. Like when you ask your chatbot to do something and then visits a website, where there's new things around like checking out in commerce being integrated directly with AI. So in WordPress, we were sort of vamping on some of the things thinking about for the future. One thing I've been wondering about is a cool feature of WordPress is actually every web page that you visit actually has, if you sort of twiddle the query string, you can actually get a feed representation of that. And it kind of goes to the feed engine of WordPress. So you can get a RSS2 version of it, or Atom version, or RSS 9.2, or whatever. And it basically allows you to create like a different representation. So you've got kind of the HTML page that gets served to humans, but a bot could, in theory, request a sort of XML version. Something that we could add to this feed engine is a Markdown version. And some people started to experiment this, where you essentially get like either with a sort of varies header, HTTP header, or requesting like a .md version of a web page could be something that is sort of smaller and easier to parse. So there's often, with a lot of the AI models, there's sort of these context windows or token lengths. So essentially distilling down the sort of meat of a web page or a blog post to its sort of like barest form, which Markdown is a beautiful sort of text version of, could essentially allow web pages to be ingested by AI things in a more efficient manner. And something I could definitely see us building into 7.0 or 7.1. This is kind of just an idea right now. It's more in the notebook, mostly notebook phase, but something I've been noodling on is how we can sort of make different representations of websites accessible. And of course, this all needs to be balanced with sort of like different websites might have different monetization or business models. You know, I'm very much in the camp that you know, James talked about, or I think Gwern blogged, where like I want my thoughts and my thinking to be part of the training of these AI models, sort of part of the future superintelligences. But other folks might monetize by people visiting the website. So what does that look like? What are ways we can sort of start to embed micropayments? And some of this stuff, you know, micropayments is kind of like Linux on the desktop. It's always been something that's like always right around the corner. But Linux on the desktop is actually happening now. There's some very cool stuff like is it Omarchy project, you know, with DHH and some other cool things where some fun things happening. And actually, I think we now are starting to get some things with like stable coins where you could actually have things that look a lot more like micropayments or ways. And I know there's a lot of folks at AI Labs and folks like, you know, Parag's company that are thinking about, you know, if we're answering a query or something, like we can actually perhaps attribute how much of that came from like different websites. And if they're registered or like sort of register perhaps in like a royalty-like fashion, not unlike, you know, ASCAP or BMI do for musical rights or other things that sort of licensing other creative works, might be able to attribute and perhaps even pay out sort of different creators. So it's the early days of this and in the beginning. So much like when streaming started, everyone was like, you know, I used to sell an album for $17.99, and now I'm just getting pennies per stream. But over time, if you look at the trend, like the music business is making more than ever. Or, you know, in newspapers and in media, they talked about, you know, print dollars being replaced by digital pennies. But now for, you know, some like New York Times, like the digital subscriptions are driving all the revenue growth and everything. So we might see a dip or some sort of adaptation as these technologies start to be adopted the first couple of years. But I think that long term, there's going to be way more usage, way more adoption, and hopefully way more sort of abundance to go around. And that's even before the singularity and, you know, money just starts to not matter because we all get, you know, everything all the time. One more minute. Cool. I think we had a question up here. Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan DeRogers. I'm work at Bluehost as a Five for the Future contributor. And my question is, well, to stage it, one of the things I've been noticing lately and the things that I'm most excited about with AI is I categorize it as learning and empowerment. And with that, I've seen a trend of people starting to take more ownership in the things that they do and they own and they take on themselves. And from the perspective of the web and all these walled gardens that we've become accustomed to over the past decade, besides the importer and exporting our WordPress sites, what observations do you have around this, and what other ways can WordPress help with this trend that seems to be out there of reclaiming our content and our stuff?
Huh. That's a good question. Just before you pass on the mic, like, I'm curious, like, is there something in mind or something that you've seen that sort of like inspired this?
I think RSS is becoming more popular again in some ways.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, and that's such a well-established older technology, and so that's really nice to see, especially where there's some new feed readers popping up, and since Google got rid of theirs, there hasn't been a good replacement for that. But then just in general, people being able to, like I said, just learn, and then that empowers them to have educated opinions and resources that they can publish themselves on things. Yeah. And physically, I'm also seeing people are recognizing that the trades are more valuable again, and so people are starting to see, plumbers and electricians is a good path to earn a living.
Yeah.
And that's from whether it's AI type stuff or whether it's just frustration with society and the way certain things are going. But I think they're all kind of connected in some ways. So I'm just curious if you have any WordPress-related observations to that effect.
Well, and it's funny you brought up RSS. So I think of technology sometimes like you shouldn't throw away your old clothes because they come back in fashion again. RSS coming back, and actually very exciting, the inventor of RSS and one of the OG bloggers, Dave Weiner, has gotten very active in the WordPress community. And he's building like alternative posting clients, and it's very fun. I actually got to see him speak at WordCamp Canada a few weeks ago, which was like an amazing WordCamp up in, was it Ottawa, that I visited. And, well, incredible set of speakers, but also, to have sort of one of the creators, sort of innovators of like blogging and RSS and everything like that, sort of engaging with WordPress. Check it out. Dave's done actually some great blogging about sort of why WordPress matters and everything like that. So his site is scripting.com, but if you just Google like Dave Weiner WordPress, you'll see some of the writing there. So I think, when you go back to I love the Jeff Bezos quotes where like, it's harder to predict the future, but maybe easier to look at the things that aren't going to change. So for Amazon, he always talked about like, there's no day when people are going to say, I would like my packages slower. So investments they make, and the countless, the logistics they've invested in, and like the shipping networks and the trucks and all the fulfillment centers and everything, like that's a long-term bet. That's now, in some places, I can now order something and it's showing up literally like hours later. Which when you imagine like the early days of like ordering from catalogs or things like that, like you order, it shows up, weeks later, and you sort of forget you ordered it, and you're lucky when the doorbell rings, and now it's like sort of this instant thing. In WordPress, I like to think of the things that aren't going to change. And so I think freedom and agency. Freedom is so at the core of everything that we do. So our commitment to open source and enabling it not just in our words, but the actions and the sort of like constitution of the license of open source, I think is not going to go out of style. In fact, perhaps even become more important. I think things like user control and privacy, which privacy is kind of like embedded into that. Again, a long-term trend that I'd be very comfortable with our sort of principles and investments there, and also how sort of our core technology stack goes to it. And the final thing I'll say is like, free people and community building. So when I speak to entrepreneurs or other folks building things, I like to say, don't just build software, don't just build a product, try to build a movement. Build something that people can believe in, something that's more than just whatever you're doing, but actually aspires to a higher goal or principle, and make it people first. So that kind of like person to person, what we do at the WordCamps, what we do at events like this, which is, this part is fun, the talking, but my favorite is before and after. Everyone like mingling and meeting people. Or I love seeing like folks I know that don't know each other yet meet for the first time, and that sort of like spark or frisson that gets created from those interactions or collisions. I think is one of the best parts of it. So, I'm sure there's a few more principles we could think of, but those are a few that in the WordPress world at least, I think are going to remain not going to change. Ooh. About to come on the screen? All right, well, a little drum roll. You're all about to experience TBPN for the first time.
We're streaming on them, they're streaming on us.
Ah.
Oh, we'll clap too. Fantastic. How are you doing?
Howdy. Thank you so much I know this is a little non-traditional, so we're kind of like Love 2 hours into like our big annual address, the State of the Word. It's kind of like our State of the Union speech. And but thank you so much for allowing us to connect. I'm kind of imagining. A lot of folks in the room have never heard or seen TBPN before.
Fantastic.
So this will bring a lot of new folks into your world, and I'm excited for some of your world to learn about WordPress.
Yeah. Give me the State of the Word. And then also, I want your personal word of the year. We've been debating what the word of the year should be.
Ooh. So State of the Word, and I'll say the State of the Word is strong.
Okay.
There we go.
That's good. Let's hit the gong.
We're hitting the gong for that one.
A strong State of the Word. Congratulations.
We actually just did a live release of WordPress 6.9. So WordPress does major releases 3 times per year. We were able to do it right here on stage. We had a little button that we pushed. We got to get a gong next time.
I love it.
That was pretty fun. Don't worry, I didn't just ship it again. But one of the things about WordPress is it's not just built by one company, but it's a community of in WordPress 6.9 over 900 contributors from all over the world, different countries, different languages, different companies, all coming together, and so that was pretty exciting. My word of the year, and actually a theme we were just talking about, is I'm going to choose freedom.
Powerful.
As technology starts to influence more and more of our lives, how we travel, who we date, the things we learn, the news we're exposed to, the sort of freedoms that are embedded in an open source license. I like to refer to open source licenses sort of like a bill of rights for software. Gives you inalienable rights that no company or person can take away from you. And that freedom and agency, I think, is really, really important and something that I think, as technologists or builders, that we should try to embed into everything that we do.
Give us an update on Beeper. I was super fascinated by that product. I love walled gardens. I also love tearing down the walls of gardens. It seems like a good shot across the bow of the iMessage walled garden. How's the progress going there? Are you using the service personally daily? Are we going to see a lot of growth there?
Well, obviously, I'm using it daily. So I would think of it not as like replacing a walled garden, but more like allowing your gardens to come together. So I'm sure you, like me, I have friends on lots of different networks. And some of them always love to use WhatsApp. And some of them always love to use, Instagram or LinkedIn DMs sometimes. I even get some interesting stuff there. And I hate it when I miss these messages, because, checking all the different apps sometimes, or in the notifications, I might miss something. So think of it not unlike how email clients, can bring in lots of different email accounts. Beeper takes all the different networks where your friends already are and maps them together. Now, the plus and minus is that it's not going to replace the networks. Like, I still keep all the different sort of specialized messaging apps because, like, for example, if someone sends you an Instagram story, when you click on that, you're going to want to load Instagram, for example. So I think of it as complementary and hopefully even increasing the usage in a very small way right now. It's pretty nascent. But in the future, think of it as like sort of a different interface. So you might still have like the dedicated apps, but then having this all-in-one inbox that you can sort of manage everything, tag people, have folders, and it does cool features like scheduled messaging across all platforms, or even just like weird heuristics that are pretty simple to do, but like show me all the, don't just show me unread, but show me all the people I've messaged that haven't messaged me back yet.
Oh yeah, sure. We've talked to some young hackers, some startups who are building, sort of Beeper competitors, and their whole value prop is like, we've figured out a way to get it into the iMessage ecosystem. Do you think that we need a new regulation there, or some sort of law change, or some result to actually open up iMessage, or do you think that with enough tricky hacking, it can be done?
Well, technically, it's not hard. Well, it is hard, but it's very possible to reverse engineer these networks.
Yeah.
However, as we saw with sort of a previous iteration of Beeper, if the network really, really doesn't want you to do that, it's probably not good to pick a fight with $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
So perhaps these things might happen through open source or something, but as a commercial company, I think ultimately you have to be somewhat respectful and try to complement these networks. So how Beeper works today is we don't support iMessage on the mobile or Android. Yeah. In theory, we could, but Apple has indicated that's something they don't want. We do support on the macOS client. We have a way to integrate with sort of iMessage using some APIs that are available on macOS. And so on macOS, we can bring in your iMessage. But again, I'm building this for the long term, and we are a commercial company as well. So we want to work with the networks, and perhaps there can be regulations like the European DMA or things that can encourage interoperability. But ultimately, I think that the sort of people who run these networks have to see a longer-term benefit for them. And for things like some of the other networks I mentioned that Beeper works with, I think their business model and everything, the increased usage is really useful for them. I think for today, Apple's business model of, particularly in the US, kind of the lock-in effect to their device business, which is, of course, where they make a lot of money from iMessage, probably indicates that, unless forced to, I doubt they will adopt sort of iMessage interoperability. But who knows? Sort of like they used Lightning for a while and eventually got USB-C and all of our lives got better. Who knows what will happen in the future?
talk about links on the internet. I feel like we're at a point in time where social media platforms are trying to keep users in their own applications so that they can monetize them to the fullest extent. Meanwhile, you have LLMs, which are ultimately doing a lot of the same thing. They're taking content from all over the internet, trying to keep users in the individual applications. Feels like WordPress in many ways is making moves to kind of like almost fight back against that. I might have that incorrect, but I feel like it's important if you're running a business independently online. It's great to have people like on your own website so you can develop a deep relationship with them. But what is your view on that? We're very much anchored around X as a business. Obviously, X has had issues with links, or chosen to demote them in the algorithm over the last couple of years. But give us kind of the state of the union on links.
That's a broad one. Well, I will say X is actually a great example, and I've talked to Nikita about this. So they now they've shifted some of the balancing of links, and they now have this really nice in sort of app browser. So you've probably noticed that now, that when you load a link, you actually still have the ability to like and reblog and everything. And I think that's kind of the future. So I do think that you can have things that are complementary, because so much of the great content and everything is more on this open web. It doesn't have to be fully embedded in the app. But that is sort of a technological change. So I would say actually point to X as some place where I think things are going in the right direction. Although I do agree that sort of time when links got really deboosted and everyone had to do it as a reply was kind of weird and sucked. So for WordPress publishers, we support so many different types of websites, and different types of websites I think might have different motivations. So for example, a popular plugin for WordPress is called WooCommerce. It's an e-commerce plugin. It actually runs on about 8.9% of all websites in the world are now running this e-commerce plugin. You can think of it like an open source Shopify. And if you're selling something, a merchant, you just want to sell the product. Might not necessarily care that someone comes to your website to buy it. So some of the new things that are happening in partnership with OpenAI and others, where we're allowing products to actually be browsed and bought inside of the LLM, are pretty exciting. I also think that the incentives of these open source chatbots in particular are very complementary to the open web. So for example, if you're on Amazon really wants you to stay, or eBay or Etsy or something like that. They want you to stay in their marketplace on their system. But when you think of how Google works and sort of the growth of Google in the open web, they have their search pages, but they also would link out. And that was a whole part of their business model and how they grew. We're seeing that with the chatbots as well. And in fact, something I talked about a little bit earlier is that the traffic from bots, both from them crawling, but also user-initiated actions, is exploding and has already surpassed sort of human traffic. And it'll be interesting to see where that goes in the future. So, there's never a better time, I think, to invest in having a domain, but also invest in publishing. And, just like you might have a direct relationship, for example, I suppose I could get a chat GPT to summarize today's TBPN episode, but it's more exciting to watch it. I think that creators developing a direct relationship and brand is going to be part of the future as well.
Very, very cool. Well, there's so many more things that I want to ask, but I know you're in the midst of your own presentation. So thank you for tuning in. Come back on soon, and thank you for having us. The view is spectacular as well. So,
it's a pleasure to meet. I'd love to come down and hang out when I'm in LA next. So thank you so much.
That'd be fantastic. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Great chatting.
Have a good
Cheers,
rest
everyone.
of your day.
See ya.
Bye.
They have this fun thing where they do really cool ad reads. So for all their sponsors and everything, they'll go into an ad read in the middle. So and as you see, they have the sort of tickers and everything. Very cool show. Check it out if you haven't seen it before. TBPN. Oh, and cool. That was cool. That was Jason Fried from Basecamp. I think they're launching something today as well. So he just got on. Cool. So how are we doing on time and everything? All right. Well, this has been a very exciting day. We've seen so much amazing sort of things launch. It has been quite the year. Had some highs and lows, a roller coaster of a year. I've seen this across the community for me personally as well. But coming out at the end of it, it is so amazing to see, in the tough times, that's actually when people come together, I think. And to see the WordPress community, the things we built and shipped, The AI team going from Genesis 6 months ago to like all the amazing things that are shipping, 6.0, and with a very exciting 7.0 right around the corner. I won't announce a date yet, but call it early next year. We've got some fun things in mind. So let's keep building together, hack the planet, keep hacking together, fight for freedom, fight for an open web, and I will see you all online. Oh, and check the number. Wait, what is the number of WordPress downloads? So we did the live release.
Not downloads, but 700,000 sites are running 6.9.
Over 700,000 sites have already updated to WordPress 6.9. Wow. So in just the time we've been talking, 700,000 sites are updated. So see y'all. Thank you.